On today's video, we're going to be talking about why I have just about had it with living in Lakewood Ranch. The most annoying thing about living here is reading reports about how it's the greatest community in the world and how we have the best infrastructure and all these bold statements that people make to convince you to move to Lakewood Ranch. But after living here for 3 years, yeah, it's a nice suburb. Yeah, it's safe. But please, it ain't all that it's cracked up to be. Let's get into this. I recently saw a YouTube video that said Lakewood Ranch is the greatest planned community on earth. But on today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys that not everything in Lakewood Ranch is cutting edge technology, trend setting, or even that glamorous. We're going to talk about some of the troubles that Lakewood Ranch is facing. I want to start off with yet another story out of Lakewood Ranch that is making national headlines. This man right here is the marketing director of New College in Florida, appointed by the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. He was formerly the spokesperson for Ron DeSantis, but I believe he lost his job as a spokesperson for the governor because of some comments that were insensitive that he made about COVID deaths. So now they got him on the board of directors of a college in Florida. Makes perfect sense. Now, this man has been arrested for playing the organ in public in Florida, not once, not twice, not three, 4 different times. And on his most recent organ playing adventure, he was arrested in Lakewood Ranch, Florida, where he lives. Allegedly, a woman was going for a nice walk here in Lakewood Ranch, and a man pulled up in a vehicle. Now, the man was practically wearing nothing. The woman soon realized that this man who approached her was also playing the organ while driving. He was booked into the Manatee County Jail on a $100,000 bond. He is currently not there anymore. He was charged with subsequent second time of playing with the organ in public. Now, his other incidents were in the Lakewood Ranch and Sarasota area at the University Mall, where he had an issue where he would go into stores, get into the changing room, and start to play the organ there, and then walk out while playing the organ inside of department stores. So this is kind of like a pattern or a habit that this individual has to go into town and kind of play the organ in the park, we could say. Now, his father is the director of the airport here, the president of the freaking airport in Sarasota, which is right across from the college. So these are people who have pretty good positions in the community. Now, the father made a statement saying that the kid has problems with, a disease that he has, and he's been taking medications for years, and it causes him to be delusional. And he also says he has a huge gambling problem on top of the problem with the exposure there. So at the moment, the family is claiming that it's a medical condition. Now, the problem is that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, after looking up who the father was, is that he was a person that I recently had on Uber, and I kicked him out of the Uber. Now, I might be mistaken, but the resemblance in his voice and the photos is identical to the person that I recently kicked out of my Uber. If you've been watching my Uber videos, you know the video clip I'm talking about where the person was going to the airport, they got rude, and I kicked them out of the Uber. If I'm not mistaken, it looks exactly like the same person, and I heard some audio clips, and it sounds exactly like the same person. I could be wrong, but the resemblance is definitely there. And sadly, this isn't the only noticeable incident we've had in Lakewood Ranch recently. You remember that not too long ago, we had a case where a person broke into a house here in Lakewood Ranch, and the homeowner shot the intruder where he died. The other person, that was another burglar that was with him, ended up getting arrested by the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. And it turned out that the person that did the robbery and that was killed was a Chilean student on a student visa. As you guys know, this area is full of students with student visas. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the video. The man who survived this incident went in front of the judge, and he told the judge, hey, I didn't think it was a big deal to break into somebody's house. I mean, I wasn't armed when I did it. It was just a robbery. I mean, what's the big deal? Well, he doesn't really realize that here in the United States, breaking into somebody's house can get somebody hurt, and it did. And now that he's going to be liable for the death of this person, because if you commit a felony and somebody dies in the commitment of a felony, you become liable for that person's death. So this individual will be facing homicide charges for his friend that got killed during this home invasion robbery, which is a big deal, by the way. It wasn't for him, but it is to the rest of us. Well, that story just a few months ago was national headlines. A Manatee County homeowner shoots an intruder. They never said Lakewood Ranch. They said Manatee County, Florida. Notice that anytime anything bad happens here, they don't say Lakewood Ranch. They say Manatee County, Florida, because they want to protect the image of Lakewood Ranch. But let's be clear. The homeowner who killed the burglar was in Lakewood Ranch. And so was this individual that likes to play the organ in public. Both of these cases have already made national attention, and both of them have happened in Lakewood Ranch, about a mile from each other. So we have a problem here in the heart of Lakewood Ranch. Now here we are sitting in traffic. It's only 2 in the afternoon on Highway 64, and there's already a massive traffic jam. This isn't even rush hour yet. This is a few hours before rush hour. Now Lakewood Ranch does have some pretty good infrastructure, but it also has some issues with the general region of the state it's in with traffic. Now, you see those trees right there on the right side of the screen? Doesn't look like there's anything back there. What do you think is back there? A gated community? Maybe a golf course? What do you guys think is in the woods right there? Here we are. All you see are some trees, right? What do you guys think is back there in those woods? You guys ready to find out what's back there in those woods? Let me show you what's happening right here in that little wooded lot in Lakewood Ranch. Behind the tree line is a homeless camp, one of many in the Lakewood Ranch area. Hundreds of shopping carts have been stolen from local businesses. Anything they can get their hands on, they drag it back into the woods, and they live clandestinely back here in these woods. And these are known as needle junkie camps because the amount of needles that are there. Recently, there's a creek just outside of Lakewood Ranch on Highway 64 on the other side of 75. This place is known as Needle Creek. They said that they went in there and they removed over 10,000 needles from a creek side where the homeless people were shooting up. Perhaps you've driven past Interstate 75 and seen the Lakewood Ranch exits and noticed that there's like a little roundabout in the middle. There's people living in there. You can't see it from the highway, but if you look close enough, you'll see trails in the woods, maybe a little bit of garbage, just an indication of what's going on in Lakewood Ranch. Bradenton, Florida had one of the largest homeless communities in the state of Florida, and as Lakewood Ranch has been growing, Bradenton has been pushing out the homeless further into the suburbs, and now many of the homeless that used to live in Bradenton are actually hiding out in wooded areas in Lakewood Ranch. You'll never see them because they're in the tree line and they walk around in the daytime, go to businesses, hang out by the Walmart. You perhaps aren't even aware of how many homeless people there are in Lakewood Ranch. Now, one of the biggest flexes that Lakewood Ranch has is how they've incorporated nature into this large planned community, which is pretty freaking massive. In fact, it goes into Manatee and Sarasota counties. Now, the official population here is said to be like 32,000 people, but realistically, there's probably 112,000 people living in what's known as Lakewood Ranch. It's been growing that fast. Yet the issue with incorporating nature into the design of a community this large in a county that has a huge homeless problem has been the notion that homeless people that live in Lakewood Ranch have ample opportunities to find a place to hide. After all, there's still plenty of empty lots. Now they're building gas stations at around every corner, which is practically the only thing a homeless person needs to survive. If you've gotten off at the Lakewood Ranch exit, either on 64 or 70, you know that all you have to do is literally get off the highway during rush hour, and I've seen as many as 4 people panhandling at once. Do you think those people aren't living somewhere in the woods behind a gas station or a Walmart? Most likely. Of course, with the strict laws in Florida, you may not see their homeless camps, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Now, there's still great things about living in Lakewood Ranch. It's a very cool, unique community. It really is. When I first moved to Lakewood Ranch, I remember running into Mick Jagger. He used to live here in Lakewood Ranch. Recently, he moved to New York for better job opportunities, but he used to live here in Lakewood Ranch. There's a few very famous YouTubers as well. And driving through the streets of Lakewood Ranch in this suburban utopia, you'll occasionally run into people that are pretty famous. You'll see them out and about, and it's a normal thing. It's, after all, a very desirable place to live. I'm not saying that Lakewood Ranch isn't a great, desirable place to live. It's an incredible place to live, and it's a pretty cool place. I mean, it isn't exactly boring to live out here. There's trails, there's parks, there's plenty of fun things to do. I'm not saying it isn't a great community overall. I'm saying there's a few problems that people overlook when they talk about Lakewood Ranch. And some of the things we're about to go into now are kind of going to hurt the local people's feelings because, after all, these are the things that they pride themselves in about this community, but there have been some misleading statements. For one, we can't deny the fact that infrastructure in Lakewood Ranch is a mess. This is a business, a large shopping center off of Highway 70, State Road 70, and they have septic sewers. They don't even have city sewage. They're on septic tanks. Imagine the notion of a large commercial building like a gas station or a supermarket that doesn't have city sewer. They're on a septic tank. That is a massive lack of infrastructure. Now, Lakewood Ranch prides itself in infrastructure. For example, during the hurricane, we didn't even lose power here because we have underground utilities. You guys may remember that when we went through the hurricanes, we didn't even lose power here in Lakewood Ranch because our community has underground utilities. That's a great strive in infrastructure. But the problem is that while in some areas they've done some advancements that they brag about, in other areas they've taken some shortcuts that are pretty freaking concerning. I can't wrap my head around the notion how a modern looking plaza like this one on a state highway doesn't have city sewage. It's on a septic tank. And because it's commercial, it gets filled up quite often. Now there's a 7-Eleven gas station that they just recently built. It hasn't even been there that long. I was recently pumping gas and I noticed a foul smell coming from the whole area, and I realized that there was a giant pump truck behind the gas station pumping out the septic. I believe I made a short of that and I put it on my YouTube channel. But the notion that buildings like these, brand new structures, brand new infrastructure in a fast growing community that's labeled as one of the best and fastest growing communities in the country, yet you have commercial buildings on septic tanks in what is supposed to be one of the most futuristic communities that has ever existed on earth, according to realtors in the area trying to sell you a house here. Now, over the years of living in Florida, I've seen some infrastructure shortcuts that are mind-boggling, but a gas station on a state highway not having city sewage and having to install a septic tank is unbelievable. Now, right in here is also a fresh market. Now, that used to be a Winn-Dixie previously when they first built it, so it's a relatively new construction. And that Winn-Dixie, when they cleared it, they had to tear all of the floor, the concrete slabs, out of the Winn-Dixie because there was just a large rat infestation underneath the concrete slab that the only solution was to tear out the entire floor and start again. Now, there's a Starbucks here, and recently we got Starbucks from there, and my Starbucks tasted like rat urine. The paper, the food, it just tasted like rat urine. So I took it back to the employees and I said, hey, you're going to have to remake my food because it tastes like rat urine. And they didn't really deny it. They were just like, yeah, we kind of have a problem here. So I went back to the Starbucks today, and just out of curiosity, I looked around the outside, and you can definitely tell that there's a rat problem in this plaza. It's had it for years, but this Starbucks right here in particular, the Starbucks is right in front of that building we're talking about, and they have also had problems with rodents. You can see here that they have many mouse traps. They've even stuck cardboard behind them to keep the rats from going back there as well. This area has a huge problem with rodents, and it could have been because Lakewood Ranch used to be a ranch, that they were just in the area before all this stuff was built. But like I said, they've even had to tear the entire concrete slabs from underneath buildings here to get rid of the rat problem because it's so massive. Now, there were videos going around the internet right when they took care of that slab, when they took the slab out of that Winn-Dixie, and there was videos going around the internet where there was just hundreds and thousands of rats scattering through the area. And it simply has to do with the idea that, well, it isn't really the Starbucks or the Winn-Dixie or the Whole Foods fault. It's just the fact that this area has had a huge rat infestation by nature, possibly because these used to all be cattle ranches, and now that it's all a suburban area, the little critters ain't got nowhere else to go. And sadly, if you walk through some of these plazas, you can literally smell the rats. Some of the areas now here have cats everywhere. If you've been in Lakewood Ranch, you'll notice there's cats here and there. And really, I don't want to put particular businesses on the spotlight like that, because after all, it isn't their fault. It's just a problem that we have here endemically due to the kind of natural area that we live in. But part of the problem of integrating nature into your community has been the fact that, well, you're going to have nature in your community. That includes rats, it includes bugs, and, a lot of the apartment complexes here have had problems with rats, bugs, ants, beehives. All that crap has been a huge problem for Lakewood Ranch, more than anywhere else. I mean, it's nice that you have nature within your proximity. So as the name would suggest, Lakewood Ranch used to be a ranch. And part of the problem with that is that there's still a lot of cattle left in the area. So you kind of have like cattle, you have like what's left over of some of the ranches. You have a lot of nature, which is the idea of Lakewood Ranch, was to create a suburban community that was still kind of wrapped by nature. But it's created a lot of problems. One of the biggest problems here in Lakewood Ranch for some people is that there's a lot of alligators in this community. Now, I used to live in Naples, Florida, right next to the Everglades, and I can tell you that there's probably nowhere else in Florida where you see as many alligators as you do in Lakewood Ranch. And personally, that doesn't bother me. But, if you have a small dog, you got to be extra careful with the freaking alligators. This was about a month ago. I was Uber driving with some people in the back seat at night, and I almost hit this giant alligator that was crossing the road. It was about an 8-footer, and you can see it's right behind people's homes. The notion of culling Florida and wildlife doesn't exist anymore in Lakewood Ranch. The amount of alligators here is mind-boggling. You just have to be aware that if you're near a lake, walking, biking, or simply just hanging out by the water, you got to pay real close attention because there's monsters like this everywhere you look. And despite the fact that Lakewood Ranch is kind of expensive, not everybody can afford to live here, what's happening is that it actually costs less money to live in Lakewood Ranch than it does to live in parts of Sarasota, Tampa, and Bradenton that are kind of the trenches. And now what people are realizing is that they can actually live in Lakewood Ranch with a roommate situation, for example, and get to live in the suburbs and not have to be in the inner city. So what's been happening lately is a lot of people from the hoods of Palmetto, Bradenton, Sarasota, and even Tampa are starting to move into Lakewood Ranch, and Lakewood Ranch is becoming the inner city demographically. To understand why Lakewood Ranch has got so bad recently, let me give you guys a comparison. Oneiko is the worst part of Bradenton, Florida. It's the most crime-ridden homeless area in the entire metro. For $339, you can get an 1,100 square foot home in Oneiko, the worst parts of Bradenton. Now, for $259, considerably less, you can get a townhome with the same square footage in Lakewood Ranch. That means that it is significantly more affordable to buy a townhome in Lakewood Ranch than it is to buy a house in the most dangerous, homeless, infected parts of Bradenton. This is why Lakewood Ranch has kind of become a suburban hood, kind of like what happened with Balrico and Brandon and Tampa, that the suburbs became the hoods, is kind of what's happening to Lakewood Ranch. The problem is that Lakewood Ranch used to cater to a crowd of wealthy people living in gated communities. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to squeeze that much money out of this area. Thus, they've started to make more and more affordable housing. And the problem with Lakewood Ranch is that if Lakewood Ranch is next to Bradenton, and you can get a brand new townhome in Lakewood Ranch for $250, you're not going to buy a house in the hood that's boarded up for $3-something. This has brought all of the poor and kind of people from the inner city of Bradenton to live in Lakewood Ranch, and it's turned Lakewood Ranch into the worst neighborhoods of Bradenton. And I know that's hard for you guys to comprehend, but let's understand this. You can buy a house in a horrible neighborhood in the 300s, or you can buy a new townhome in Lakewood Ranch for like almost $100,000 less. Now, whether you're buying or renting, the same scenario takes place. For example, for $1,350, you can get an apartment for about 700 square feet off of MLK in Sarasota, right across from the housing projects. Very high crime rate area. Now, for just $200 more, you can get about the same size apartment in Lakewood Ranch. Brand new apartment Everything is new. You have access to a pool, access to internet and other amenities. Now, the issue is that the apartment in the city, in the hood, doesn't have any amenities like internet included, but the new apartment in Lakewood Ranch will. Thus, if you want to get access to a gym, pool, or even internet, that brings the price tag of living in the hood to about the same price tag as living in a new apartment in Lakewood Ranch. So because it costs about the same to live in the hood as it does to live in Lakewood Ranch, I mean, to be fair, the apartments off of MOK, if you just added an internet service, which is going to be free in Lakewood Ranch, you're at about the same price tag. The only difference is now in Lakewood Ranch, you're in a brand new apartment in the suburbs and you have all these amenities included with your community, like a gated parking area, key fob entry, you have a better address, you're probably in a much safer area in a better school district likely. It's practically a no-brainer. For about $100 more a month, or about the same if you get some amenities involved, you can live in Lakewood Ranch, not off of MOK. So with Lakewood Ranch costing the same to buy or rent as some of the worst neighborhoods, it's brought a lot of people from those neighborhoods to live in Lakewood Ranch. And now Lakewood Ranch has become exactly like the inner city. I mean, even if it's $100 more, most people would rather live in Lakewood Ranch than off of MOK in the inner city. So it's what's happening in Lakewood Ranch is that most people that lived in the hoods of Sarasota and Bradenton are now moving to Lakewood Ranch because they practically cost the same. And in Lakewood Ranch, they don't have to worry about crime or safety, or at least that's what it used to be, because Lakewood Ranch has become just like the inner city. You got car break-ins. Just about 2 months ago, I had somebody almost break my door off trying to get into my vehicle. We have an area where it's like there's cameras and stuff, and I went to my community and I said, hey, somebody tried to break into my vehicle. There's cameras there. They're like, oh, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, you pay all this money to live here and you got people yanking on your doors? So at the start of the video, we talked a little bit about students, right? Like the little home invasion situation. All these apartment complexes are also getting filled in with students. On the right, we're about to pass a medical college. It's one of many institutions of education that attract people to this area. There's medical schools here, and student visas have become a huge thing in Florida. Lakewood Ranch, you have the new college, you got the School of Liberal Arts down there in Sarasota, you got the medical school here, you got the academy down there in West Bradenton. So this area has a lot of schools. And what's happening is that a lot of people on student visas are moving into all these apartments. When I first moved to Lakewood Ranch, these apartments used to be like 70% retired old people. Now it's about 70% students on student visas. Brazilians, Ukrainians, Bosnians, Germans, Polish, you name it. If they're from another country and they got a little bit of money, they're sending their kids to school in Florida. At first, I thought it was nice that there was a little bit of diversity in the community, but then I realized that it wasn't just a little bit of diversity. Apartment complexes like the one here on the left have become practically nothing but foreign students, and this creates a very transient place. So when the people that are fixed are coming from the inner city and everything else is people who are transient, like they're not having kids and making families here, they're just here to study, it's turned Lakewood Ranch into a soulless, bland place. And despite the diversity of people moving into Lakewood Ranch, you haven't had authentic restaurants because these are all transient people. They're kids. They don't really contribute to the long-term culture of this place. A lot of them aren't going to be here 3 to 5 years from now. It's created a very transient community. One of the problems that we've had recently is that a lot of the kids here have been causing a lot of trouble. They've been able to utilize the many bike trails and sidewalks to make little bicycle gangs that go around taunting people in the community. The bicycles all mostly look identical. They wear black helmets, black coats, so you can't tell who's who, and they go around the community taunting people. We've had them going around people's lawns. People have posted videos of people on bicycles destroying their lawns. They'll gang up 15, 20, 30 of them, just go around causing havoc. When law enforcement shows up, there's so many bike trails and sidewalks and places for them to ride that law enforcement can't catch them. So what they've done is that they go around taunting people in the community. They gang up and bother people that are walking. I was recently going for a walk in Lakewood Ranch, and I had somebody come at me and racial slur me and There's also been people who've had stuff thrown at them. They just go around taunting people in the community, and when you call the cops, they're 20 miles away on electrical bicycles. At this point, there are literally gangs who go around harassing people, and as soon as law enforcement shows up, they disperse quickly and nothing can be done about it. In my case, I've had it where I've been walking and they'll throw stuff at you, they'll call you racial slurs. Other people have shown camera footage of like gangs of kids riding on their lawn and destroying their gardens. It's like endless trouble. Now, the Manatee Sheriff's Office has placed more police presence in the area, especially at night, to try to see if they can catch these kids that are riding. But most of the time, of course, they're not going to do anything in front of law enforcement. And how do you distinguish between the ones that are actually riding bicycles and the ones that are causing trouble? It's become an absolute nightmare for law enforcement and for the residents, knowing that you can go on one of these massive trails and end up getting harassed, stuff thrown at you, and many people have reported racial slurs. In my case, it was a bunch of kids that came up behind me. They screamed some racial slurs. I talked to another lady that jogs in the area quite a bit, and she tells me that they throw watermelons at her. So a lot of it's racially motivated. It's basically the rich kids harassing, the students and the people that are coming here from other countries. So it's become a huge problem in this area to the point where it's even made it on local news already, with people very upset. And again, increased police presence because of the activity of these young kids. Talking about increased police presence, break-ins into vehicles have become persistent. You can't even order stuff we have an area in our community where you order your boxes and stuff because they're apartments. And it's got to the point where you can't even order stuff and have it delivered because people come and steal it so much. So it's like theft has become a huge problem. Car break-ins have become a huge problem. I think in the time I've been here, we've seen like rashes of burglaries on and off. So car break-ins, all that is normal. It's become very high crime here. And one of the reasons we moved to Lakewood Ranch was getting away from the crime. But recently, the rashes of burglaries and car break-ins have made it to where you're actually more propense to be a victim of a car break-in here than you are in the hood. It's ridiculous. The homeless people from Bradenton are moving into Lakewood Ranch, and I wouldn't doubt that many of the car break-ins we're having now are because of the homeless people, because that's what they do, is they go around at night breaking into people's vehicles. But anyways, life in Lakewood Ranch has become kind of difficult. And at the end of it all, these are suburban first world problems. It's not like we have a rash of homicides in the community or shootings. But really, there have been things in Lakewood Ranch that you're like, okay, I'm paying all this money to live in this community, and now I'm dealing with the same problems that allegedly were the reason why I pay so much money to live here. Now, one of the great things about Lakewood Ranch is that they built the roads here first and then the houses later. The problem is that now Parrish is right next to Lakewood Ranch, and they didn't build any roads at all. So like the northern half of Lakewood Ranch has actually become a traffic nightmare, because despite the fact that Lakewood Ranch has been building accordingly, Parrish right next door hasn't. And now all of the traffic from Parrish has to flow through Lakewood Ranch, and it creates a bottleneck on Highway 64. So already the northern exit of Lakewood Ranch, it's no different than the rest of Tampa or Sarasota or Bradenton. It's a never-ending traffic nightmare along 64. I mean, here we are before rush hour starts, and we were already kind of sitting in traffic. And again, it's Lakewood Ranch has grown, and they did build the roads first, but Parrish right next door hasn't, and it bottlenecks all the way back into Lakewood Ranch. So there are great things about Lakewood Ranch. Is it this prestigious, greatest community in the world? I highly doubt it. I think it's just realtors that say stuff like that to encourage people to move here. And, it hasn't been a bad stay. I like living here. It's not like I don't like living here, but you do have to raise an eyebrow every once in a while at some of the things that are happening here and realize that perhaps it's not all it's cracked up to be. As I've said before in other videos, the absolute killer for me with Lakewood Ranch is that all these expensive restaurants absolutely suck. I don't mind paying for expensive food here now and then as long as it's good, but these restaurants are all expensive and they all suck. There's nothing authentic here in Lakewood Ranch, and there isn't going to be. No matter how diverse this area gets, nothing authentic exists in Lakewood Ranch. All the restaurants are types of places where you're going to pay $150 for an appetizer, and I'm not exaggerating, by the way, that exists near here. And it's like, well, you're going to go and you're going to spend a few $100s to go out to dinner, and the food's going to suck. You're paying $26 for a hamburger here in Lakewood Ranch if you didn't know that. So it's ridiculous. It's expensive and it isn't genuine. I recently realized that I'm in a 2-bedroom now. If I stepped it down to a 1-bedroom, I could live in Miami and have all the authentic food in the world and be closer to real things to do. The blandness of Lakewood Ranch is really getting to me. And, it has changed quite a bit. I mean, there have just started to be some weird things happening in this community. All these strange news stories that are coming up out of here are making you realize that there's some real nut jobs that are moving into this community, and they've kind of turned it really freaking weird. It's like the awkwardness of some of the people out here is just weird. Like, I'll be outside, like a while back, I had my lawyer told me that, they were going to send people that were going to come look at me, right? So he told me, like, when you're outside in your community, just know that they're going to be following you because of this legal thing I got going on. And I go outside and there's like people doing all these weird things in my community. I'm like, there ain't no telling which one of these they're all doing weird stuff. Like, there's people doing yoga in the parking lot. Then there's somebody, like, for some reason stopping their vehicle and being on the phone. Then there's girls taking pictures in front of flowers. And then there's like poodle humping. And it's like, I don't even know, when you look at this community, like right now, there's a woman outside walking around staring blankly at buildings. She's not doing anything. She's just out there with a blue headband staring at buildings. Earlier today, when I'm recording my window, I'm looking out the window and there's another guy like doing the same thing. Like, I told my lawyer, like, these are some of the strangest people I have ever seen. Like, how do I know among this weird bunch of people which one of them is the one that's taking pictures of me or taking pictures of the palm trees outside? Because weird stuff happens here on a level that I can't explain. Now, I used to live in Naples, and I kind of know the antics of rich suburban people because I grew up in Naples. There's no comparison. I mean, you go out there right now, and it's a complete clown show. You got people walking their poodles. You got people out there like you see stuff that you're just like, wow. Why is this guy doing jumping jacks in front of a freaking coffee shop? It's beyond weird. And then you have all these, like, I recently went to get a barb. Let me give you some examples of the things that I am just creeped out about Lakewood Ranch. I used to go to the hood. I have to go all the way to the hood to get my hair cut, right? Because there's a barbershop near where I live. Now, this barbershop, you have to tell them your taste in craft. Yeah. Now she's sitting down, like the woman's sitting down with a phone. It's weird. Like, you just see stuff out. Like, right now, I'm looking at one person's over there looking in the trees. Like, there's a woman digging in the bushes right now on the other apartment. And there's one just sitting here. Now she's smoking. We're not allowed to smoke in this community. It's a no-smoking community. Ma'am, do you know you're not allowed to smoke here? Here's another one taking a picture of his foot. He's on the phone, and he's holding, like a tripod or something. He's got a tripod. I'm not even kidding. Let me show you guys what's going on out there. As I'm telling you guys of how strange it is here in Lakewood Ranch, there's literally a guy outside my apartment right now setting up a tripod to take pictures. It is so cringe to be here. And I get it. It's like suburban. Everybody wants to live here. It's kind of like a suburban Miami of some sort. I don't know how to describe this place. But there are times where the awkwardness of this place creeps you the crap out. Like, I literally called my lawyer. It's like, let me FaceTime you and show you what's going on here right now. You got people like walking poodles, people in the bushes, people taking photo shoots. Like, it's weird. Like, how do I know among all this bunch of weirdos that are out here which one is following me around to take pictures? Like, it's weird. It's beyond weird and awkward. Lakewood Ranch is a weird place, and the awkwardness of some of these people, it's not normal. And this is coming from somebody who's lived in Naples, Florida. There are times where I just walk around this place and I'm like, wow, I feel like a fish out of water here. And keep in mind that coming from Naples, Florida, I'm used to like old money, like where people have money, but like whatever, okay? It's not a big deal. But some of these people, like, they're new money, or they're pretending like they have money because they're from the hood and now they're in the suburbs. So now they put on some yoga pants and think they're rich little snobby kids, but they don't realize that they're paying more rent than somebody's paying mortgage, and they're never going to get ahead in life living like this. It's a weird, weird place. Like, there's great things about Lakewood Ranch, but like, I do feel like a fish out of water here with how strange it's gotten. And don't get me started on some of the other cultural movements that are happening in Florida right now. It's awkward. It's weird. It feels uncomfortable. There's a level of weirdness here these days that it's just, you have to just kind of scratch your head sometimes just walking outside and seeing some of the things that happen. Like today I was walking around in the morning and there was this guy with this giant Doberman. And I'm like, bro, like that thing's going to hurt somebody. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's strange. Anyways, that's Lakewood Ranch right now. We're probably going to move out of here when we get a chance. It's a great community. It's very safe and very clean and all that. And I like it. But there are some things about this place that for the price tag that I'm paying, I feel like I want a more authentic and genuine experience. And I do feel like a lot of people are being conned into thinking that this is some majestic place when it really ain't. Is it safe and nice and pretty? Yeah. Is it stylish to live here? Absolutely. Is it this magnificent place that's on par with Qatar? Or what? No, it ain't. It's a freaking suburb of Bradenton, and that's all it is. And I'm looking out the window now, and now there's a guy walking a dog, but he's not walking the dog. The dog is walking him, because the guy has like a vest around his body and it looks like practically, yeah, the dog's walking him. And he's not walking the dog. The dog is walking him. It's bizarre. It's weird. And it's getting to the point where it's kind of cringe. Now, there's a beauty to that. The beauty of it is that you can do whatever the crap you want in Lakewood Ranch and nobody flinches. You could be the most eccentric person you want out here and nobody's going to give a crap. And there's something good to be said about that. Like, I'm not judging people for being unique. Good. I'm glad they're unique. I'm glad that I can be my weird YouTube personality as well without having to worry about backlash from the community. I like that everybody can be who they are here, but when there's too many people being who they are, it definitely gets interesting. Thank you for watching today's video.